let's say I got divorced and I got into another relationship, I'm going to be in the same mess.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So if I really want help, I really want to do right. What better way to practice than the mother of your kids, the person that you're in it with now?
Hey guys and gals, Trevor here with Carrot, and I've got the most famous Carrot guest of all time, a probably 3 or 4 or 5 time returner to the Carrot Cast. You got Mr. Adrian Nez on the podcast. What's up, man?
Hey, Trevor. Thank you again. It's been a while, but I was glad to be back.
Dude, so you hit me up the other day, and we decided to come up with, to do this podcast. It's early morning on my end. Summer, and I absolutely love getting to the office earlier because I can get out of the office earlier too and enjoy the summer. But one of the things that you're mentioning really hit me hard because I'm going through similar things where, really focusing on family and my marriage and being a father. And it's hard as an entrepreneur to find that balance. It's hard to find, where am I doing things right? Where am I going astray? And, I absolutely am pumped about this episode of the podcast because this isn't a money-making podcast. This is about the important stuff. This is about the stuff that even if and when you make millions and millions and millions of dollars, if you don't have this part of it nailed, none of that money matters at all. So right. I want to pass it over to you to kind of kick off the topic, and we're just going to have a conversation back and forth. Yeah. And whether it's guys or gals listening to this, watching this on YouTube, you're going to get a lot from this, hopefully, and hopefully this causes you to think about some of those important things rather than just grinding away on your business. All right, man, I'm going to toss it over to you.
No, I appreciate it. Thanks, Trevor. And like we previously started that conversation was, I really believe as much of a blessing that this entrepreneurship road that we're all on, I think it's in our DNA. We just want to build. We're so ambitious. But along with those blessings, can also come with a curse. I hate to even use that word, but it's really to drive that point home is, it's so easy to get so focused. It's almost like, I know we talk about the one thing, we talk about being focused, but sometimes we can become so focused at the task at hand is like we begin to neglect probably the most important things we should be focusing on. And it's really interesting what you just said earlier, and I'm going to share this because I'm a Christian, and I have a relationship with God, and even that I'm trying to get back into. But one of the things that was really in my heart was you mentioned, I don't know how to say this, but I like how you just said it was, it's a, even if you make millions of dollars but anyways, I feel like God put this in my heart when he said, your wealth is in your wife. And I was like, wow, like, what does that mean? It's like because a lot of times we chase the things, but yet the very thing that will bring us true wealth, even in the terms of material things, is in front of us, right? There's so many principles that are built into how you should treat people, right? I mean, and a lot of times we understand that you're supposed to treat your customers, you're supposed to treat, your coworkers, your employees in a certain, but then we struggle so much on the other side with our spouses, with our kids, right? It's like we're not applying the same principle, and what happens, we get out of whack. So we might become super successful on this end, but then we're just so struggling on this end. And I think that's what, and those are the things that I think really brings us down. Because I'm so fascinated when I hear successful people killing themselves. I'm so baffled because on the surface we see them as so successful, like wow, like they had it all, they had fame, they had money, but yet something drove them to that point, and usually it's that missing ingredient, which is their personal fulfillment, their personal obligation that they didn't meet. And I'm not saying it killed them, but I think as human beings we were meant to serve those around us the most, and which is family. And even with me in the last 2-3 years, things have just exploded for me, but on the business side, but then on the personal side, like it just took a dump. Right. I faced separation a couple times, and we're trying again, right? I mean, some people might say, well, like they're one of those couples that are just off and on, but I just have the mentality, if it takes me 5 times, 20 times to save my family, I'm going to do that because I'm not perfect. Yeah. Right. So, and I know you have such a heart for your family. I mean, every time I come up and see you, I mean, love seeing your kids, beautiful kids. You have Carly, great wife, and I've always like, wow, so. Yeah, and like you said, you probably have your struggles that I don't see, nobody else sees. I have my struggles, and I think as entrepreneurs, we have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lonely world. I mean, most of us are by ourselves.
Yep.
We probably won't confide with those around us because we're afraid to talk about it, or it makes us look weak.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think it's time that we kind of come out of the closet with this curse, I guess you could say, to where I know so many people listening to this call are probably, if you admit to yourself, your marriage is on the rocks. I mean, you might be satisfying her with stuff, security, but I know at the last mastermind that me and you were at, one of the biggest investors in the country, just like he became so open because of that presentation that you did.
Yeah.
And he admitted, like, wow. Like he was, I think we're so justifying the security, like, hey, I'm doing this for you, I'm doing this for the kids. Like at some point, where do we stop using that excuse? So
man, I want to unpack that a little bit, because I remember that moment at that mastermind, and mastermind is amazing. The group, it's called Investor Fuel, that we're a part of, and there's other amazing masterminds too. Collective Genius, really good friends with Jason Medley, amazing group too. Wasn't able to match my schedules this year, but I'm hoping to join CG next year. But I remember that moment, man, because I think every single person in the room related to it. When James said that, he said, I was working a lot, growing this empire, growing this business, and just like you said, I think we all do this. We justify the lack of mental attention, or the lack of mindfulness, or the lack of just being there presently with our wives, or our husbands, or kids, whatever, our loved ones. And we say, well, you know what, it's okay because I'm building this business for us, like you said, for my wife, for my spouse, for my kids. And I guess that's a big question, man. It's like, number one, is it okay to build a business for ourselves? And is it okay to give ourselves permission? But then also, at what point do we have to make sure that we know there's this line that is being crossed, that at some point it's not for the family anymore? At some point it is ego-driven in part. I know for Carrot, one thing that I'll justify oftentimes, and I think it's still a good justification in many respects, but also in many respects it's a cop-out, is when we were starting Carrot, I was working a lot. I was working a lot. I've never told this story in the podcast before. I told it at Carrot Camp, and it choked me up. I probably only told it like a half a dozen times ever. But in the first couple of years of Carrot, I had my head down, just like I think all entrepreneurs who are successful do. You have your head down, you're working a lot, but it doesn't feel like a lot of work to you because you're excited about it. Like it's something that you really enjoy, the work and the challenge and the climb, and there's a lot of bad things that go with it, but you're like, man, I'm loving the grind of getting this thing going, but I don't want to grind all the time. And I remember in those first 2 years, man, I don't know how many hours I worked. I don't really care to add it up, but it was way more than 60 hours a week. I'd get home, and so I guess at that time I had 2 kids, 2 young kids. They're 3, 5, and 7 now. But I'd get home, we'd have dinner, and then we'd put the kids to bed, and then my wife would maybe pull up a TV show, and I'd pull out my computer and I'd work until midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. 4 or 5 nights a week. And I thought that was cool. Same thing, justifying this. Hey, I'm building this business, building this empire, so we can someday have a better life, right? We had a pretty darn good life then, looking back. Like, we had a really good life. Yeah. I don't really spend much money right now, man, except for that money pit of a house we bought. But fast forward 2 years. So this is after 2 years of making a pretty good routine of telling myself that, hey, I can do late nights and work on 4 or 5 hours of sleep most every night because it's only impacting me. And I came with the justification that, hey, since it's only impacting me, that's what I thought, that I will just make sure that even if I'm tired, I'm still showing up really good for my family. I'm still showing up for my team. I still have energy and portray the energy even if I don't have it. So it feels like, hey, you guys aren't being impacted by it. I'll just take the hit right now because I'm loving this, but also I'm building something important for all of us. And we were driving to my parents' house. They live 2.5 hours southeast here in Oregon. You got to go over the Cascade Mountain Range. I was driving to my parents' house. This is in the middle of the afternoon, like a Friday. And my kids were in the back. I think they might have been watching a little movie or asleep or whatever. This is like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. A stretch of road I've driven 1,000 times, man, like 1,000 times. And I was starting to get a little sleepy, because I pulled another one of those probably 1 or 2 in the morning, nights the night before. Saying, hey, it's just me that's getting impacted with this, and I can stick through it. This is for my family. And 1 second I was awake, and 1 second I wasn't. And all I remember was, hurtling down the highway up in the mountains, curvy highway, at 65 miles an hour in our big Yukon XL. And 1 second I was awake, 1 second I woke up, and we were about ready to hit the guardrail, and there's a little ravine over the edge. And it's just like the movies where if this were to happen in a movie, you would say there's no way the guy would have woke up right then in the perfect time to have his bumper just scrape the guardrail and come back in the road. Like there's no way that would have happened. The guy would have either careened over or like it never happens that way. And that's what happened. Like I literally woke up just in time to have the car going towards the guardrail. I was able to swerve safely back into the road. And all that happened was the right front corner of our bumper got scraped pretty darn good on the guardrail. Of course, I was freaked out. I pull off the road, get out of the car, just shaking because my wife, I think, was reading her asleep, so she didn't see me fall asleep. But she felt the car careen, and she felt and heard, obviously, the bumper scrape pretty darn hard on the guardrail. And I was like, babe, I can't drive anymore. And I probably didn't drive the next 3 or 4 or 5 family trips. I didn't drive them because I was freaked out that I'd fall asleep again. And from that day forward, like this is one shift I had to make, but I have many more shifts that I need to make. But I want you and I to talk about our struggles and also things that are working for us too. Right. Is from that day on, I said, you know what? No longer can I say that all this hustle, all this grind, all this working late nights every single night, me being tired, is just impacting me. It almost killed my family. Like it almost killed my 3 kids in the back. It almost, killed my wife and probably myself too. And the worst thing would have been if I wouldn't have got killed in the whole ordeal and my family did. Like I couldn't have lived with myself at that moment. Right. And so from that moment on, I'm like, I'm not working nights. I'm not working weekends. And for 2.5 years now, I think over those 2.5 years, I know I haven't worked a weekend over 2.5 years, and nights probably less than 15. Nights where I had to pull it up and finish an article or finish a video or get some emails caught up or something like that, but less than 10 or 15. And I really want everyone to look at their own situations there and like, where do we think that we're the only ones taking the hit? Where we think, hey, we're just putting our heads down. I'm the one getting impacted by this. I'm protecting and saving them. Where are you doing it to where it doesn't have to be as drastic as almost killing your family on the road because you fell asleep because you've been on this terrible, terrible work schedule? But it could be where you're slowly killing your family because you're not showing up at home. It could be because you're slowly killing your family because you're not present with your wife or you're present with your kids when you get home. Where are we not serving our families?
Right. So, one thing that comes to mind is I think you can relate very well is, here at Carrot, we teach our customers about the phantom expense, right? Mm-hmm. What you're just talking about, like, what is that phantom expense that's coming with the family, right? Yep. So, like, sometimes I think we see all these things happening that are good, and we justify that everything else is good. Mm-hmm. But yet there's something that's suffering because of it, something that's taken the hit for this good thing. So back to the phantom expense. So we might be seeing the revenue, we might be seeing the income, we might be seeing the growth, but yet at what expense is that happening? Mm-hmm. And usually those are the things that we don't see initially until something happens. That's what happened with me. Like, like when me and you first connected years ago, I was in West Virginia. I was in hustle mode. I mean, you used to give me a hard time because I would be responding to you at like 3 o'clock in the morning.
Dude, it'd be 11 o'clock on my time, and I'm shooting you an email, and then Adrian replies back in 30 seconds. Like, what are you doing? Go to bed. This can wait for tomorrow, man. So what happens is we're seeing all this stuff, and then then all of a sudden, man, I'm kind of all over the place because I feel like I have so much to say. So, but here's the thing, guys, and even women on this that's listening to this call. My biggest tip
for you is do not abuse your spouse's understanding. And what I mean by that is, like you said, Trevor, the first 2 years, 3 years, you hustle and you work your butt off. When I was in West Virginia getting this whole thing started, I did the same thing. And usually in that stage, our spouse will be understanding, right? But what happens, we begin to abuse that understanding and we begin to stretch it out beyond the hustle mode, beyond the startup code, because that's one of the biggest things that I did. Like, okay, she's still going to understand, right? But really, she sacrificed so much initially, our relationship, because she supported me, she understood. But then as I began to abuse that understanding, another year, now we got kids. Now we have less time, right? So things just begin to compound. So guys, so don't abuse your spouse's initial understanding. At some point, you're going to have to make that transition to where, like, man, and I'll be honest, I don't know where that moment is. Right. So,
dude, here's I've never heard it that way before, and I like it. So I want to dive down that rabbit hole a little bit. So here's how entrepreneurship and like starting companies has always happened for me. Right. So you go, first of all, you've got a goal, and usually it's running towards a desire or running away from a pain or something you don't like. Oftentimes, as your first entrepreneurial venture, it's usually running away from something, that job or whatever it is. And it can happen that way. Like starting Carrot, I was running away from something. I was running away from my previous business, right? And I've been very, very clear with that I created a business that great business partner, great people, great customers, great product. I just wasn't charged about it, man. It was like sucking the life out of me. So I was running away from that. And like you said, during that initial phase, your spouse, usually, if it's a good match and you guys both made a good choice at the start to marry each other, but your spouse is going to be very supportive because they see your passion for it. And also they see this goal on the other end. Hey, once we can get to this income level, then life will be easier for us as a family. The problem is, like you're saying, once we get to that income level, us as entrepreneurs, we don't stop. It's the whole horizon. It's the whole horizon complex where I've said this many times too, but it's almost like you're on a boat and you're sailing on the boat and you see the horizon way out there and you go, and that's where I'm sailing to. Your spouse and your kids and whoever else is around you, your loved ones, can see that. Your team members, this is the same thing for team members, right? But they're sitting there next to you and they see your vision, they see your excitement about it. They see this journey ahead and it seems like, well, I don't really know how it's going to go, but I trust him or I trust her and it's exciting. As you sail towards that darn horizon, you reach that point 11 miles away or whatever the horizon point is, there's a new horizon, like you can never reach it, right? And that's what we do as entrepreneurs. And you're spot on, man. We're setting this vision and this goal for our spouses. And at some point, we cross over that financial number or that whatever it is that would actually provide the fruits of that effort, the fruits of that sacrifice, the fruits of the goal. And we just sail past it for ego most of the time. Because it's like, well, shoot, I sailed past that thing. What kind of entrepreneur am I if I just stop at this? Because now this guy or this gal is doing this, so I got to go for that now, right? Now it's like ego-driven because, well, shoot, I can't be just the person who stopped at this. Even if that number is amazing, that number would literally make your ideal lifestyle like, man, you would be living the amazing life at $20K a month. And somehow you think you got to get $50K, you got to get $100K, you got to get $200K, you got to get $1 million a month or whatever it is.
No, you're spot on. And I think I'll even add this on. And is I think the more that you begin to stretch that understanding, the more callous your heart becomes. Like I know the more that Amanda, like I said, at the beginning stage, and this comes from experience, guys. So like the first couple of years, she was so understanding. She was on board. She saw, like you said, she saw the we cast a vision. They were on board. But all of a sudden, it's like, okay, they're beginning to see progression, begin to see some things happening. But then now what happens is now they begin to ask, all they're doing is just say, hey, let's spend a date. What happens is like now we get offended. Right. Now we get upset. Now we say, hey, back to what James, what he was spot on is that, hey, can't you see I'm doing this for us? Can't you see that we're, and really to me, that's the danger right there of having a callous heart, because that's why I use that word intentionally. We abused our understanding, right? So we saw that we can kind of get away with it, and then you said ego. Like, who are you to tell me when to stop, right? So to me, it becomes a hard issue, and I'm facing these hard questions right now. I mean, and I'll be honest. I mean, I'm getting counseling from a pastor now. He's forcing me to look within. I think that's the danger too, as like you said, as we begin to have this ego, we begin to put ourselves around people that just kind of tolerate who we are, don't really have people that will tell us what we need to hear. And I think that's one thing that we need. That's my heart in entrepreneurship, would love to create a group of guys who will just hold others accountable. You know, whether if I'm on the road, hey, maybe these guys will keep me accountable from staying out too late. And dude, like, I'm gloves off. Maybe this accountability will help me not cheat on my wife. You know what I mean? Because it's so easy to kind of put yourselves in that position. And what happens, back to the callous heart, when you have that callous heart, now we become prey to the world and the temptations to it, right? So, because it's easy for someone to get our attention if we have a strong marriage. But if my marriage is really weak, it's easy for someone to get my attention now. That's just the reality of it. So guys, I just think reevaluate and really, again, back to what I'm saying, don't abuse that understanding.
Man, so here's a couple more things I'd like to dig in here, because like I said, every single person listening to this episode, doesn't matter if you're male, if you're female, it doesn't matter at all, because we all have these same things, especially as entrepreneurs, where we are so high achieving that, just like Seth Bueckley, my good friend, and you've met Seth many times, wrote the book Ambition. I had him on a previous episode of the Carrot Cast. He says it many times that happiness is not on the other, happiness or fulfillment is not on the other side of achievement, like we all think it is. Like many of us entrepreneurs think, man, once I achieve this, then I'll finally be happy and fulfilled. He says happiness is not on the other side of achievement. Gratitude, happiness is through gratitude. Happiness is not on the other side of achievement. Happiness is through gratitude. And I can truly say the same thing. You know, I can say the exact same thing, because as I've set goals in my business, in my life, usually those goals tend to be business related. And then I kind of want to address this too, because there's some people that are going, well, shoot, you know, it's not all ego, Trevor. Like, you're on a real mission, or I'm on a real mission, or whatever it is. Like, this mission matters. I'm helping tons and tons and tons of people. That is not selfish. That's actually the opposite act of selfish, right? I think that's a justification that we come to again, because we want to make our businesses matter, right? We want to make our businesses matter, and they should matter. That should be what gets you up in the morning. But the business and the clients in it and your mission there, I feel, shouldn't become paramount over your mission at home. And I think all too often we make our mission and our business paramount over our mission at home, or we don't even have a mission at home. You know, the mission is to get married. I won the prize, and then now I got, you know, having the kids, and then it's just to sustain. I guess, I don't know. That doesn't sound like a very good marriage to me. But I think a lot of people are doing that. So at what point for you, once you hit your goals, is it ego driven? And at what point are we justifying the extra time, or the lack of, hey, I can't do a date today, or I can't do a lunch date tomorrow, or whatever? At what point are we justifying it because, you know what, this is for the greater good? And you can't serve the greater good if your home isn't being served first. And that's one thing that I'm guilty of, man. Like even just this past week with my wife, where we talked about the summer, and every single summer I usually cut out earlier during the day. I usually try to cut out at 3 or 3:30 to go hang out with the family more and try to get here in the office earlier. Now, this is the first morning I've gotten to the office earlier in the whole summer. And yesterday I left the office at 5 o'clock. Now, is that every day? No, the day before I left the office at 4. But still, my wife and I had a very intentional conversation about it, saying, hey, you know, what time will you get off of work? And what's going through my brain at that time is all these justifications. Basically going, okay, I've got all these projects I'm behind on. I've got this, I've got that. I've got this team, this whole team of people now that if I'm not there, like, I'm going to be guilty because if I'm not working, like, maybe they think that the boss isn't like fully in it and he's not committed, and like that. These are things that are going through my brain. So what ends up happening is like, I remember this vividly this last week. The way that my next words came out actually probably made my wife feel guilty, which that shouldn't have been that way. Like, she was just trying to have me have more time in the afternoons with my family, which I want that too. That's what I say anyway with my words. That's what I say why I'm doing this. But then at the end of the day, when it came down to me trying to cull down my schedule so I could get off at 3 or 3:30, all that goes through my brain is the justifications and the guilt of why I can't pull away from work because of all my team and all my customers, right? And that's just weird. So I still haven't nailed that yet. I'm working on that, on getting rid of that guilt. And part of it, honestly, with the team is just like you on the team, is having a great conversation, having a clear understanding where my contribution is to the business, where yours is to the business, where everyone's is to the business. And it's not tied to me being here certain times,
right?
You know, and that's something I just need to get over. And one last thing, man, you being on the team, and also you growing team members, I have big time struggle with this. I think once I nail this better, it'll be way easier to be the best possible husband and father at home. But what happens is kind of going back to that guilt thing once again. You know, we're casting this big mission, this big vision. That's where I really need to make sure that I, as the CEO, am setting up the team so I can do, you know, the things I'm the best at. And same thing with everyone else on the team. I want to have everyone else doing the things that they're best at. But at the end of the day, I started this company. I put in the hard dues, you know, to build this company. A lot of people did. You did it as well. We put in the hard dues, and at some point, there's got to be the time when we got to call those dues. We got to go, okay, I put in those dues. Let me now, you know, you receive the benefit of that, because financially, the money just stacks up in the bank. I don't spend it. I donate a lot of money, but I don't spend it. So at some point, I've got to then capture all of that energy, all of that work that I had put in, and same thing with you and other people that own businesses, and go, okay, you know what? I'm going to gain an extra 10 hours a week and hang out with my family, or take on this hobby and do things like that. So I haven't done that as much yet, but I'm going to nail that one.
No, I love that. And I think for that to happen, and I know I'm kind of going through it, is, you know, it's like, first of all, I think we have to surround ourselves with people that will really bring that to surface, right? And that's one thing. Even I remember at the first Carrot Camp, we had one gentleman, and he was going down the same road I've already been down, and I remember just like having a heart from like, dude, like don't like call her, do, you know, get that done, and he did, right? So, and now I follow him on Instagram now, and he's killing it. You know, how much did he fix his relationship? I don't know. But
he's working all the time, man. That's for sure. He's always working.
Right. So my point is that, not to bring him down, but it is a difficult task, right? So don't think, guys, you're going to nail it the first time or second time. For me, what was helpful is surrounding myself with people that are just good people. Like, I have you. I know another person that's been a big influence, just being supportive and praying for me, is Ed Beck. He was at the first Carrot Camp. And I'll tell you this, Brad Chandler at the last Carrot Camp is really what set me off. He said something so powerful, and I think this will help someone too, because he's been through a lot of mess, and he's very open with it. Yep. But he said, you know, if because I was going down that road of divorce, and he said, what if you're going to fix yourself, what better way to fix yourself with the mother of your children? Because and basically what he was saying was, what you're dealing with on your end is never going to get fixed just by going to divorce or just thinking, hey, you know, having that business mentality. Oh, this business didn't work, so what happened? We shut the door.
Oh, gotcha. Yep.
Right. So that was my mentality, and I remember my pastor. He was a really strong spiritual dad to me years ago. I remember he warned me all the time, don't treat your marriage like a business, because he was seeing that. So and when Brad said that brought to surface what my first pastor told me was, don't treat your marriage as a business, because as soon as things began to, the more she offended me, the more that she was stopping my ambition, or, you know, she just wanted to spend more time with me. What happened? I want to change direction. I want to pivot, right?
Yeah.
Pivot. So again, it's just a whole mindset. That's why I'm saying, guys, as much as we have these great traits, these same traits can also destroy you. But when Brad said that, that's like so true, because let's say I got divorced and I got into another relationship, I'm going to be in the same mess.
Yep.
Right. Yep. So if I really want help, I really want to do right, what better way to practice than the mother of your kids, the person that you're in it with now?
Yeah.
So when he said that, it's like, holy crap, that was really, it was deep. And so now I'm not trying to push Carrot Camp, but these are the things I think I love about our group is we touch on those things.
Yep.
Right. So anyways, my point is surround yourself, even, whether it's a pastor, I don't really recommend going to just your best friend, because sometimes your best friends don't understand an entrepreneur lifestyle, right? They go to work at 8, come home at 5, and they just zone out. So be careful in who you confide in, because a lot of times people will just tell you what you need to hear. And now if someone someone's willing for us just to dump on them, I guess that's good too. But I think as entrepreneurs, it's really awesome to be able to reach out to those that have been through it, understand, because we have the same struggles. But yeah, man, I think a lot of times it's just surround yourself with those that are going to be really supportive, and that's going to give you that support. But also it allows you just to get that out of your system, because I think we're so guilty of being in the self-development world. Like, be positive, do this and this. But another thing I'll challenge everyone to do in this call is stop buying the books about success. Start buying books that's going to help you be a better father. Get the books that's going to help you become a better husband. I mean, me and how many times do we see on Facebook? I do it on Instagram. I post books of success all the time, but how many times have we posted books that's going to help us be that better person? Right. So I think that's the challenge. It's there. I mean, we all brag that we're reading 200 books a month or a year. Why not pick up an extra book that's going to help you? Yeah. It's in us. We just got to just make it priority and be consistent with it.
Man, so here's in this last little part of this podcast, and like I said, I really, really, really appreciate everyone listening to this or watching this, depending on whether you're on YouTube or the podcast. And most of our podcasts, if this is your very first CarrotCast episode, most of them are focused around business and making money and growing a great business, so you can have that freedom, flexibility, the finances, make the impact. And while I say that a lot, that we grow our businesses for freedom, flexibility, finances, and impact, oftentimes when we get that freedom and flexibility, we don't do the important things, like Adrian said. And also the big thing is we think once we get that, then we will do the important things. Then we will be able to take our wives on dates or husbands on dates, or then we'll be able to do this, or then we'll be able to do that and do that. And I think it's just the same as I've heard it many times, that if you're not donating and charitable today when you don't have any money, you're not going to be donating and charitable when you have a bunch of money. So you got to start creating those habits now. And so let's kind of, if we wrap up the rest of this call, let's talk about some habits that we can create. Because we've talked about a lot of the bad mental habits. We talked about a lot of the bad kind of mindsets that I think many of us have, the guilt that can be attached with certain things that ends up impacting our businesses or our families. I'll start off with a couple of habits that my wife and I are working in right now that are working. Now we need to get consistent with it. Like, we need to get consistent. And we have an amazing marriage, but we're definitely going through a part where she went back to work, I think 3 days a week, about 4 or 5 months ago, after taking 18 months off of work. And she's just not the type that is a stay-at-home mom, full-time stay-at-home mom. She's motivated. She's amazing at her craft. She's in the medical field. She's a physician assistant. And she really, really needs that outlet. Being honest, when she went back to work, I was being pretty selfish at the start. I'm like, I worked really, really hard to build up this business and this lifestyle so you didn't have to work. That's what I'm thinking. It's like that was kind of what I thought your dream was. And she never said that. She never one time said that. I just made assumptions that make it so you don't have to work. And, we've got all this money and everything that you could want. And she went back to work. And I'm like, what are you going back to work for? You don't need the money, And she's like, I need to. I want to. And I didn't support her very well. I wasn't against it, but she could tell that it wasn't something that I was full-heartedly just backing, saying, babe, you want this, you need this, let's figure out the schedule, we'll make it happen. So the schedule's been our biggest issue. And here's a couple things that we're doing to make it better and be more intentional. So probably my biggest struggle, I mentioned before on this episode, is guilt. Is guilt both on the business side and the home side. And when I cut out early from work, I feel guilty about cutting out early because the whole team doesn't get to cut out early, but I cut out early. And then when I'm when I'm not being able to commit to a lunch date or something like that with my wife, I feel guilty for that because it's like the whole thing. It's like I feel guilty both ways. So a couple of things that we've done to remove a lot of that guilt is this. First of all, let's have a conversation. Oftentimes we have the guilt because we never had the convo. We never had the convo with our team saying, hey, you know what? This is what I'm doing this summer. And I'm going to make sure that I get the things that I commit to. If I don't, then I'll stay later one day. And I want you guys to hold me accountable to it. But this is what I'm committing to so I can really become the best CEO for you guys as possible. And I haven't had that convo. So I need to have that convo with our team because what happens, man, is come 3:30, someone hits me up and needs something, and I never had that conversation with people, so I didn't set the expectation. So what do? I say, cool, I can take it on. I can do it because I feel the guilt because I never had the conversation with them. So then what happens? I'm 45 minutes late going home. This is literally the day yesterday. This is me recounting yesterday from the time that we recorded this. And there wasn't strife for anything when I got home, but I know that it's just bad because my wife expects me to be late, and that's not a good expectation for probably the most important person in your life, one of the most important anyway. The next thing is how can we also set those expectations and have those conversations at home? So I know one thing that is insanely healthy for relationships is obviously having alone time with your spouse. So it could be a date night. It could be just literally an hour without kids going and hanging out. It could be a lunch. It could be just after the kids are put to bed, rather than turning the TV on, sitting down and just talking about the day. Like that's really important time. So something that we've been more intentional about is not going straight to TV. I'm not a TV watcher anyway. I really don't. I enjoy TV, but I also get hooked on it, so I just don't watch it. But my wife really enjoys TV, so I'll find myself watching some shows with her. And what happens is oftentimes the kids are in bed, the TV goes straight on, and you just kind of go in veg mode. You don't have a chance to really connect. And we're getting better at that not happening. We don't have a TV in our bedroom. We haven't for probably 7 years. But and that's a good tip, y'all, too. Get the TV out of the bedroom. Yeah. And get your phones away from your bed. The next thing is setting intentional block time for friends and for passions for each other. So one thing I would always be guilty about was I love golfing, love mountain biking. I also love hanging out with my friends, but I don't do it too often. I don't do any of those too often because it's usually work and focusing on that, which I really enjoy my work, but it's usually work and then home. And I feel guilty I already have the guilt with pulling away from either one for the other. So there's no way I can do one of those activities without feeling guilt, right? So then we have those conversations. We set block time. So the mountain bike rides, even though it makes it a little bit of a pain in the butt for my wife on Tuesday mornings, me and the guys here at the loft, we go on a Tuesday morning mountain bike ride. So I feel great about it. There's no guilt there anymore. She's pumped about it because I'm hanging out with friends and I'm doing something I really enjoy. But you got to flip it around. Babe, what are you passionate about? And I try to do that first rather than before I fit mine in. What are you passionate about and what would you like to spend more time on? And for her, it's been working out. She hasn't been consistent with working out for probably the past 7 or 8 months, and it's usually been guilt, schedule, all that stuff. So we had the convo, and she thought that I thought my business was more important than her working out. Like that's what she thought after we got to talking. And I said, babe, I will move my schedule. Like you tell me when you want to work out, when it's going to work, and I'll move things. And I did. And I think she thought that I wouldn't do that or wouldn't be open to it. And I felt bad that she even thought that. So that's on me, not on her. Because we didn't have the convo. So she's working out several days a week now. I'm pumped about that. The next thing, then I'll shut up and I'll pass it over to you to see what kind of habits are you wanting to change or what are you changing. But the next thing is friends. Friends are really important, y'all. Like we can't be just locked into our work world and we can't be just locked into our marriage. I think you have to pull away and you've got to have friends and hobbies because without those, it's so easy to have this life where you don't have an outlet outside of those two things. And for me, I've got an amazing group of friends, but it gets harder and harder to connect with them, as we have families and schedules are all over the place. And especially my group of friends, like we're all entrepreneurs, so it's even harder. Where Seth right now is out of the state, Cody's hunting somewhere, other people are everywhere. It's like, where are all my friends at, right? But I still have a lot of great friends here. So the next thing is going, okay, what is it that we can set up to where we're having enjoyable hobby time or just hanging time with our friends? So what we're talking about now is picking the same week or the same day each month. We're just going to start with one right now. Maybe we'll do two here shortly. But where it's like the last Tuesday of the month, Carly just knows that I'll probably be home at 8:30 or so. Or the last Saturday or whatever it is, where I'm just going to go hang out with friends, going to go grab a drink or go play around a golf or whatever it is. And there's no guilt there because it's pre-scheduled. She's pumped about it. I'm pumped about it. And same thing on her end. She's going to have a friend's night. And actually she's heading today at noon. She's heading for the weekend over to Bend, Oregon, about 3 hours away with one of her friends. I'm like, I'm pumped about it. Go hang out with Katie. I'm so excited that you get to. And I got this. There's no guilt. There's no, oh my gosh, I've got it. No, like I'm pumped to hang out with the kids too because it makes it so I'm fully mentally present with the kids. So those are some things that are working for us. We need to create better habits around it, but those are biggies. And if you can execute those, just blocking real time for yourself, for your spouse, and for friend time and hobby time, it's going to make a big difference.
Yeah, for me, those are awesome, by the way. Really awesome. And so for me, it's really, I love marketing, right? So I'm going to use the low-hanging fruit. Like, what am I good at? And just learning how to flip it, right? Like for an example, like here at Carrot, we go above and beyond for our customers and our members. Why not do that with the wife and kids, right? It's like I'm so quick to please those, but then so slow to do it over here, right? Mm-hmm. So I think the first thing that I'm working on is just learning how to unplug, right? Just have a really strict work schedule. And then for me, I think that'll force me to be better too, right? So now I think a lot of times, sometimes I know in the past I had so much flexibility. Sometimes that's an excuse. But now it's like, okay, I'm going to work from the cool thing with Carrot is you guys are on the West Coast and I'm on the East Coast. So I can kind of start a little bit later and then end a little bit later, kind of adjust that way. So for me, it's like, okay, I'm going to work from 10 to 6, right? And then now I'm forced to get everything done. But now the challenge is, okay, what do I do before 10 and what do I do after 6? And just making those adjustments, right? And so for me, first thing is just learning how to unplug. I think that's the toughest task. And I think one thing we got to pay attention to is, we've always heard the statistics. Small businesses in the first year, this amount go out of business. Then the second year, it goes out of business. This amount goes out of business. The third year, this percentage. I really don't think none of those are. Not none, but I would say a good chunk of those. I believe what had nothing to do with the product or service. I think it's just a person paying the consequence of what they thought they had to do to be successful, right? So to me, if I look at those numbers. Guys, gals, your business is not going to be successful or fail because of the product or service. Now, I say it carefully because I know there's some really bad services and businesses out there, but my point is what's your level of commitment to your family? I think your true success is going to come if you can make that right. Everything's going to come into place. It's a principle, right? It's a principle. Like so, how do you tie the first day of your day? So I actually had Amanda go on Amazon, and I told her, I said, okay, you choose for me some books that you want me to read, because she knows I love to read, right? And it was a struggle. It was a struggle trying to pick up this book that had nothing to do with business, but yet probably plays a big role in how it can become a better father, better husband. Because an opening point for me was on a Saturday. Couple months ago, my oldest boy, he's just so sweet. So real quick, my daughter wanted something, and they didn't know I was there. It's kind of like from a movie scene. It's so funny. But my daughter was going to ask me something, and then Caleb, my oldest, corrected my daughter. He goes, "Hey, leave Dad alone. He has to work." And this was on a Saturday morning, and I had no plan of working, but that showed me their perception of their dad. You know what I mean? And Caleb wasn't doing it to be smart. He sincerely was looking out for my interests. So he's correcting my daughter, like, no, don't bother Dad. He has to work. And it's like, man, like that broke my heart. Like, man, I don't want my kids to have this mentality that they can't ask me because I'm busy.
Yeah.
Right. What if my son or my daughter's struggling with some life issue and they're so afraid to talk to me because they think that dad is busy, because that's the frame that I put into their heads at this age in their life. Right. When they're absorbing and they're creating their philosophy, they're creating their perception right now, and that they're going to carry that on for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
Right. So just kind of like your story with the road trip, to me, that was my eye opener. Like, man, I don't want to pass on it can become I'm trying to create generational wealth, but then now I'm creating generational curse for my family. You know what I mean? So
that's a great way to look at it, man. That is.
So to me, I think it's just just a couple things. Unplug. Have someone in your life that you can talk to, that you can confide in. For me, I chose a pastor, and the reason why I like this pastor is he can relate, because he shared with me how he was serving God, he was ministering to people, he was doing all the things that God put in his heart, but he was neglecting his family. Yeah. So you can be doing a lot of good, and still destroy those things in your life. And trust me, God didn't want him to destroy his family for the sake of the ministry. Right. So definitely have someone in your life that you can confide in, and just be open and honest with yourself. Be vulnerable. And also we just kind of have to take some of that ambition that we have towards success and just apply some of that towards your family.
Dude, this has been an awesome talk, and I appreciate the heck out of you bringing it up, because, like I said, most of the time we're talking about business and making money and how to grow a business and things on here, and this right here, and I'm going to finish the call the same way I ended the call. This right here is the stuff that is going to matter, especially more when you actually grow the business and make money. Because at that point, you're entrenched in these habits. You're entrenched in, I've already got money, I've already got goals. If you haven't taken care of these things, y'all, it's just going to amplify that when you get there. So the reason I raised up my computer or my desk just now is I've got this canvas. If you're watching on the YouTube side of things, you can see the canvas. If you're listening to on iTunes, go to our YouTube channel, subscribe on YouTube. Let's go to youtube.com and look up InvestorCarrot on there somewhere, or on Carrot. It's probably on there. It's not our company. Our company name is Carrot, y'all. But I think that's the way it's listed on there. And you can see the video of this. But right there, this canvas says actions express priorities. Actions express priorities. And where are your actions showing that your priority is? Is it showing that it's going after the next dollar? Is it showing that it's for ego, for you? Or is it showing that it's for the important things, for whatever you believe in faith-wise, for your family, for just like, what are your actions showing priority for? Adrian, appreciate the heck out of you spurring this podcast and making this podcast happen, and also just being vulnerable and sharing, because I know even if there's just one person who listens to this that changes their habits and their patterns, if we can save one marriage, man, that would be amazing, and this whole thing was worth it. So thank you. Love you, man. Have an amazing rest of the day. I'm going to pop over here, get my workout in with the team. They're gathering over there. And we'll see you out here in Carrot in a few weeks, man, at the Carrot Retreat for the team. Awesome. Thank you, buddy.
Appreciate it.